Good morning. It's Lauren from Portfolio Rocket and LinkedIn Live. And we have one of my favorite people on LinkedIn. And I want you to know this guy is my go-to. He's my go-to for information about what's happening in the marketplace, in the economy, and certainly as far as careers and hiring. And you may have guessed it because you probably saw the banner. It's Jack Kelly. Jack, thank you, thank you, thank you. Jack clearly is at the Compliance Search Group. He is the founder and also an amazing, amazing contributor at Forbes. He's one of their senior contributors. And I look forward to his articles, not just his LinkedIn posts, but his articles all the time because they set the tone for they summarize what's happening like out there in the real world and how it can impact all of us, especially in the career space. So thank you, thank you, thank you for being here.
My
And thank
pleasure.
you for such a
Thanks for having me.
wonderful resource.
Thank you for having me. I should just leave after this great introduction. Leave as a winner. Feeling all good about myself now. It's
Good.
hard to live up to this. I'm going to
No,
try.
it's not.
All right.
No, it's not
Okay.
because you do this every single day. And I so appreciate both from the recruiting and from the content and all of the pieces that you deliver. And so what we're going to talk about today, right, is like, let's be honest. You've been around the block a couple times. And what that means is that you have a lot of intel that can be very valuable to all of us over your 25 plus years on the recruiting side, certainly being able to report what's been happening in the marketplace, but really understanding the ebbs and flows, because this is not your first season of impact with respect to hiring or firings or layoffs or any of that. But what I want to really know is, given all your experience, why is this time different? And why are the confluence of all these different factors so critical to understand?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing up this topic because I think a lot of folks are not aware or prepared for what may happen. And I'm an optimist. I'm not a doom and gloom guy. I'm not, when I write, I'm not oh my God, the world's coming to an end to get clicks. I try to be really sober in terms of, you know, hey, give the positives, the negatives, what may happen, and try to give some actionable advice for what people could do. And what I'm seeing now is this, and this is not my opinion. I'm basing off of, the facts. And Jerome Powell, who is the Fed chair, basically the other day came out with Jackson Hole symposium saying, hey, you guys don't get it, referring to like Wall Street and economists and everybody. I'm bringing down inflation. It's at whatever, 9%, and that's way too high. And inflation it could ruin everything. High inflation is devastating. But to bring down inflation, he has to basically kind of crush the economy. And when I mean crush, that sounds a little like over the top, but he has to bring it down because the more things go well, the more inflation goes up. So we're in this really bizarre world. So for instance, when they say, hey, there are more jobs, instead of that's, yay, that's great, to Powell, that's bad because that means more jobs, people have more discretionary income, they're going to spend more, and they're going to make more inflation, which is going to keep things worse. So what he's doing, he's stopping with all the stimulus packages, not printing money anymore. He's doing quantitative tightening, which means they're sucking out money from the environment. Also, one of the reasons I think that the Biden administration is having a million IRS agents with guns is because by getting people to pay more taxes and audit them or try to extricate more money from them, that sucks money out of the economy to bring it down. So what you're having here is a situation where we're going to see for the short to medium term a lot of pressure put to make things tough for businesses with higher interest rates. that means all these like unicorn companies that were founded by people who are 12 years old and worth billions of dollars because there's money was cheap, all these meme stocks that people were buying, in 2020, all these cryptocurrencies they were buying, it was a lot of it because they had cheap capital. Interest rates were super artificially kept low. Now inflation, interest rates are going to go higher. So when interest rates go higher, that means you want to buy a house. You're like, I can't afford the payments for a house, so I can't buy a house now. And if you can't buy houses, housing prices go down. You're not going to need carpenters. You're not going to need plumbers and so on. So you're going to see things going down when companies don't have to pay higher interest rates to get money to keep business going. They're going to have to tighten their belts. They're going to have to cut costs. And by cutting costs, they're going to lay off people. So it sounds like this whole thing sounds really weird because it's the opposite of we all would think would happen. But this
right. And I want to put a pause in this because thank you, Barbara. Here it is. The contradiction between the media and the actual stats on the job market are bonkers. So we are hearing, and thank you everyone for being here, but thank you, Barbara, for summarizing this because
you said it much better than me, Barbara. See that? Exactly. you put it well put. Thank you.
Because this is so confusing, right? Yeah. We're hearing all this on one hand, like sit tight, like relax, like people are getting hiring right and left. I mean, I have both situations in my practice, and then we hear, word up, this is coming down. So help us make sense of this.
Yeah, so it's so wild how that, because it's not what you think would happen. We're in this weird, vibe, and to me, there's no choice because Powell's basically saying, hey, we're bringing it down. So if they're going to bring it down, you have to be prepared to see that things are going to get tougher. Interest rates are going to go higher. So everything's buying a house is going to be tougher, things like that. But what happens is companies, big businesses, let's say particularly white collar professionals, they get let go because, if you work at an office somewhere, let's say you don't have a factory, you don't have machinery. So the only thing you can let go are people. So the odds are that a lot of folks are going to be downsized. And what I feel you need to do is get ahead of the curve and say, hey, if this is going to happen, and let's say I'm completely wrong, right? Let's say I'm completely wrong. Everything is
wrong,
right?
Let's make you wrong. Let's make you an outlier. And like, you're just here to blow smoke.
Right.
Okay. Let's go with that assumption.
So even if I'm completely off base, right? In my analysis, it still to me makes sense to be prepared and not be complacent. It still makes sense to build out your network. It makes sense to find some really top recruiters who specialize in your area, get on their radar so they can keep an eye out for you. It makes sense. And this is people are going to really lambaste me for this, but I'm saying this with the best of intentions. I know you want to work remotely. For the time being, go into the office, even if you don't have to. And I would even say go in 5 days a week. And the reason I'm doing that, and I get it, I don't want to be like Malcolm Gladwell, where like you're going to just yell at me and pillar me on social media. It's more, I'm saying this more for this particular period of time, is that because it's uncertain, you want to get noticed. Think about this for a second. While all your colleagues are at home, you're going to be in the office. So they're going to see you. They're going to notice you. You want to be indispensable. You want to be irreplaceable. You want to be that go-to person in the office that they know, hey, Lauren or Jack, we'll give them the work because we know it's going to get done. They're going to see you. You can have those serendipitous meetings in the hallway. You're going to go to lunch with them. So you're going to kind of be that person. Now, if you're home, you have the work-life balance. And just so too, full disclosure, I'm working remotely, so I respect people who are doing that. I get it. So you get noticed. I think what would happen is this: when there comes a time where they may decide to lay off, if a person, you're in the office, they see you all the time, you're helping people out, you're contributing, compared to somebody who's like a box on Zoom that comes on once a week, once every few weeks, who are they going to choose? They're going to choose the person they know, they trust, they developed a relationship with, and keep that person. And the other one, they don't know you. So it's much easier to cut someone loose where there's really no connection to. So I think we have to start thinking and have a strategy in place. Recruiters, get in touch with career coaches, resume writers, life coaches. You want to be really prepared so that you can keep your job, save your job, or if God forbid something happens, you have the skills to get another job.
Right. I want to put a pause in this
Yeah.
because I love it when there's varying opinion. Thank you, Hannah, for being here. You could go into the office, or you could work harder to communicate your achievements with your manager and build stronger relationships with your colleagues. Both are a good start. So I appreciate this. And I think that everyone has to
Yeah.
essentially come up with their own level of balance, whether it's hybrid, whether it's, hey, I'm traveling for this conference and now I'm going to spend a couple of extra days on the back end being in the office. But I'm curious to hear your take on what you should do if you're a candidate and you've been looking for a remote role. Right now, you don't necessarily have your posse at work and your boss doesn't know you because you're in transition. So what should you be doing to ensure that whatever you're forecasting and looking for as part of your strategy is going to also provide a longer runway to build the indispensability?
Hannah's, I agree with Hannah in the sense that you need to get, and this is, again, this is kind of could be cringy, but you got to do what you got to do to keep your job. So you want to really ingratiate yourself with your boss. You want to get in touch with him or her. You want to get on their radar. You want to set up meetings. You want to have a routine meeting, particularly if you're working remotely and you're not going to see that person in person. So you want to have that schedule where you're constantly interacting with it. So you might not be physically in the office, but if you might even have more contact with them if you have it set up where you're doing it. You might want to do, there's something called job crafting. You may want to speak with your manager and say, hey, you know what? I love it here. I want to stay here. I know we're going through challenging times. I'd like to take on new assignments. I'd like to take on new tasks and other responsibilities. Are there people I could help out with? So yeah, you want to be assertive. You want to be aggressive. You don't want to just be complacent and say, hey, everything will work out fine. Now it may, but why take that chance? So yeah, as Hannah mentioned, get in touch with your boss. How can I help you, Lauren? What do I need to help you succeed in your role? Because if I'm going to make you look good, you're going to want to keep me or promote me because, hey, Jack is making my life easier and I got a promotion because we all together did some good work. So that's an important part. Like work. And again, it sounds cringy. It sounds like you're sucking up. I don't mean it that way, but it's reality. You know what? You want to be that person who's making things happen and having those relationships so you could just, you can keep growing within the organization.
I think that there is a way to build a level of insurance for your security
Yes.
in your career. And before we jumped online, I made a call out to Linchpin, which is one of my favorite books by Seth Godin. And basically what he talks about is the idea of how to become indispensable. Now, at the end of the day, just a small caveat, everyone's dispensable, but I would say less dispensable, far less dispensable than other people in the organization who may be, again, cringeworthy, quietly quitting. And that doesn't mean you need to drain your energy. It just means when you are there, what are the things that are moving the needle and transforming the business? How are you delivering not just what's on your job description, because that's baseline. That's like a person, right? How are you essentially moving that needle and building those relationships so that when you are there, oh my goodness, you're making, again, an impact that people don't want to live without. So I want to also, this is a great question. Jack, I'm in a career transition and in an active executive search. My more recent experience has been in private equity held companies. Do you see more/less movement in certain companies and industries with respect to hiring events such as financial exits? And what do you suggest? Is it safe to say that many companies are on hold until after the November election and seeing how fourth quarter shakes out? Great question. Thank you so much.
Marie, it's really interesting. So what I think is going to happen is this. you're going to see a lot of slow walking the hiring
Mm.
process. Because let's say we're you, me, Lauren, we're senior executives at ABC Widget Company. It's easier for us to just say, let's wait and see what happens. Let's see what's going to happen with monkeypox. What's going to happen? Are we going to get in World War III with Russia and China? What's going to happen? With inflation. What's going to happen with a recession? So it just makes it too easy to say, let's take our time. And if we find somebody, let's say the job is paying 100,000, but we can get someone for 75,000. Okay, maybe we'll pull the trigger and hire. If we can't, let's wait and see. Maybe someone will get downsized and they'll be desperate, and we'll find that person. So I think generally you probably see a slow walking. It doesn't mean it's going to stop hiring, because just Lauren and I were talking about the ADP report that came out. There's more hiring. So it does. So this is why it's bonkers, which I forgot who said that before.
Barbara West, yes.
It's bonkers. It's bonkers. But this is just playing it smart. Even though this is happening, you don't want to get complacent. So I think be prepared that if the interview process takes longer and is clunkier and you don't get feedback and you don't get constructive criticism, get ghosted, it's not just you. Because I know it really hurts the self-esteem of people when you just feel ignored. I think it's more of they don't know what to do. And executives don't want to come out and say, I don't know what to do. I'm afraid. Right. I'm scared. They're not going to say it, but that's the actions say it, that they don't know what to do. Right. So it may take a while. So there is hiring. People are getting placed. It's just a little longer. It's clunkier. There's just more scrutiny. They throw more people in the interview process because they want to get decision by consensus, because they don't want to be the one to make the hire and then they get yelled at for bad decision. So if this happens, be prepared. And then
I want to also mention some of the antidotes with this this slow walking. I love that term, right? So in the candidate world, you hear this, oh, they're dragging their feet,
yes.
Right? That's a slow walk.
Yes.
You hear, oh, I mean, I thought this was the end of the process, and then I learned that they need a project. So there's like the line moving, right? All these different
one more interview, one more project
around this. And so what I want to just suggest, and again, this isn't bulletproof, at every touch point that you are having with your recruiter, the hiring manager, other people that are involved with the interview process, and even through networking, right? Ask them questions to benchmark. So it sounds like you guys are moving me to the next round. Help me understand how many other candidates are in this round. Help me understand when you think that you'll be making the next round of decisions. When do you actually think that you're going to make this hire? Because just the way your search is changing by the minute, their search on their end is too. So you want to be recalibrating at every touch point, because if you find out that, oh my goodness, there's 10 people in the next round and you're in another interview process and you're one of 3, well, hello, like, where are you going to invest your time? So this is a way to constantly have some kind of, and again, I can't promise you that it's going to be accurate, because to your point, Jack, they may not know what they don't know. They're not necessarily lying. They are literally in the same kind of holding pattern that you're in, just on the different side of the desk. So make sure that you are keeping yourself in the know. They will not think you're a pain in the butt. They will actually respect the fact that you're aware that they have a hiring process, and that you're not just like going along on a rope tow going, okay, I'm just going to wait and spend my time, in what I refer to as the wait and see game.
You're so right. This is really great advice.
You need to also have multiple. Do not make like a barnacle. Do not stick to any one thing, right? You want to be, and I know Claudia's here, and the octopus is her symbol. You want to be more like an octopus with 8 arms in different things at a time. So don't make like a barnacle, make like an octopus. That's my last point on that.
I love that advice, because back when I first started recruiting, you would get feedback. The HR person would say, hey, Jane did really well with this, but maybe she could do X to improve. And then for the next, interview, hey, the person's a big Giants fan. So like talk about the Giants. And you would get that. It would be great. Now, not so much. It very rarely happens. So that, Lauren, what you were saying is so important. You have to ask those tough questions. You just can't just go through it blindly. Yeah, you want to know, how do I fit in? Do I fit? Am I going to go into the next level? What's the compensation range? You want to ask those admittedly uncomfortable, awkward some questions sometimes that you feel like, but you owe it to yourself, because you don't want to go through a whole process after 3 and 6 months to find out that the comp range is way lower than,
Right. I
you
mean,
expected. Yeah.
yes, for sure. So what I also want to touch on as it relates to the economy and also this particular time, right? So how we talked about strategy,
Mm-hmm.
right? We talked about remote work. We talked about building every opportunity that you can to build that rapport through FaceTime. And again, you may know somebody at a company and go have coffee with them. It doesn't always have to be in the office. You're talking about being able to have real life IRL human connections so that you have more of a lasting impression. But one of the other things that you talked about both in your article and Jerome Powell, right, is the fact that all of these larger companies, JP Morgan Chase, Apple, etc., are indicators in their particular industry. So finance for JP Morgan Chase, Apple for tech. Where should we be watching aside from the bigger companies to see other indicators outside of the news, Jerome Powell, or where else should we be doing our sniff testing so that we have an understanding of how we can not only best prepare, but also be proactive about our search process?
Yeah, I think it's what I've seen, and places like LinkedIn on a regular basis, they'll give a list of all the companies that are that are laying off people. Layoffs.fyi is another good source. Blind, the platform, has layoff lists. So you can get a vibe check of like what companies are laying off. I think a lot of the startup companies that were heavily funded and burning through money, they're having challenges. So that where if you were interested in going to like this really cool startup, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago, now I'm not saying not to, but you would probably want to do a lot of due diligence and check out their financial statements. Are they profitable? Are they getting revenue? Are they burning through all their cash? So you really want to look at it. But then when you go from that startup to, let's say, Apple let go recently 100 contractors, recruiting contractors, which that's, as you were asking, that's like a tell. Like if you're letting go of these 100, contract recruiters, that means they're not having a lot of plans to hire more. Because otherwise you're not going to let them all go. So that's a big tell. So you want to kind of do some homework within your sector to see what's going on. Are you seeing the recruiters getting laid off, HR people getting laid off? Because if that happens, that means they don't really have plans to hire. So those are some of the bellwethers to watch for.
Yes, so anybody, it's you said layoffs.com, and the other one is Blind.
That's and more tech oriented for that. Yeah, so
more tech oriented. But these are kind of like the 411, right? This is like from people, not they're interactive. And of course, please, I can't even tell you how much I'm pleading, use LinkedIn as a way of understanding what the current conversations are. There's so much free information there that you can benefit from. Here it is. Oh, Hannah, we love you. Also pay attention to where the federal money is allocated, infrastructure, IRS, and what businesses support them. Yes, for sure. A note from our deeply beloved Jeff Young It always seemed to me that employers drag their feet. Slow and steady may win the race, but don't ignore a great candidate and cut off your nose to spite your face. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of labor intensive interviewing that seems to be a big trend, especially during the pandemic, because people don't want to make a mistake, right? It costs a lot of money to make a hire, and it's even worse if they're not retained. So they want to make a smart decision. And then Jamie, thanks for joining. Historically, this is a great question. How long does it take? And she's like, oh, please,
Yeah.
when can I come back candidate market?
Yeah.
Or is there an average? What do you foresee?
So a couple of things to go back to what Hannah mentioned. I think that's a smart strategy. Is that there's an emphasis in this current administration towards the environment and electric vehicles and other things like that. So if the money is going that direction, you may say, hey, let me go in that area, because the chances are there's going to be a lot of funding, which means there's going to be jobs. So why knock my head against the wall in a place that's not growing? Let's say in the real estate, which might be going down, let me go into something ESG oriented. Let's go something that's environmentally friendly kind of thing. Maybe electric cars, whatever the case may be. Find what's moving, what's hot, what's growing. So you want to go in there, and then maybe avoid the areas that are going to be really impacted by inflation, by recession, by higher interest rates, and maybe avoid those kind of areas, because that might be a dead end.
Right. So I'm going to just add my 2 cents in here. I only wish that I was this magical person that had the prediction to tell you when it's going to switch back, because that's almost the whole point, is that there's a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of things that make, to Barbara's point earlier, these two dichotomous pieces of information are happening, and which one do you believe, and where do you know what's right and how to react. The point is, you're never going to have a reliable predictor of when it's going to jump back, but there are lots of things that you can do that are predictable in terms of your ability, and we talked about this before, to network, right? It's completely, you can predict that. You can set up those coffees, and you can build that referral network. And so you have a pipeline, and to keep that going, right? Because what I want to make sure that people understand is that this live and this information does not mean that people will not be hiring. I want to make that very clear. This is not a doom and gloom episode about, oh my God, hide until it gets better, or prepare yourself for a battle. What it means is that we don't necessarily know the complete shakeout. People will always be getting hired, but where and how and who, and you want to be that person. As Jack said, you want to be that indispensable person, not when you get into that position, throughout the process, so that they can see that and have an expectation that you're going to continue that when you get there. So I really, really appreciate, there's so many comments. It's so good to see you, Sonal. Stoicism, focus on what you can control. Recession, if it happens, isn't in your control, but being exceptional at what you do, managing perception smartly up and down in the organization, speaking with internet people in interesting companies, that you can control. So, wow, interesting. She's like, totally we were like on interesting people, not internet people. Ha ha ha. I actually think it's funny that you said internet people. I love that. And then Robin Merle, the author of Involuntary Exit. If you guys don't know this book, get it if you've been involuntarily exited. Thank you for making the point that hiring managers are also trying to accommodate many changes, including unexpected departures, information about disappointing revenues, and sometimes challenges to their own position, as you both established is a volatile and complicated economy right now. Bottom line, don't jump to a negative assumption about your candidacy. Keep gathering information. Keep that conversation going, so that you are at least in the know. You may not like what they're saying, but at least you have information that is actionable, that you can reply, respond, and then take a different tact if you choose to. So, wow. Jack, I mean, seriously, Jack, we should have like the quarterly Kelly report, and so that we can bring you back and really be able to have a temperature check on how things are changing. So everyone, please, I mean, my goodness, there are so many helpful resources in here. Hannah, you have been indispensable on this call. Providing so many great resources, and every single week, I would just want to thank you for tuning in. And also, please follow Jack Kelly both on LinkedIn, and make sure that you are checking out his articles on Forbes, because like I said, this is a way to get in. And did you know, these are amazing. I love the little, and you can listen to this article. You don't even have to read it anymore. It's 8 minutes, and making it easier and easier and easier. So for everyone here on LinkedIn today, thank you for joining, and we will see you next week. And that will be from Asheville. Yeah. So talk soon, Jack. Hang around for a couple minutes. Thank you
so much.
Bye-bye.